they have got to respect, as I said to you on Thursday night, the name of Hawthorn has got to be respected by North Melbourne, and the name of Matthews has got to be respected by North Melbourne, just as the name of Trott and the name of Ablett and Martello and Hendry and some fellas whom they don't know how well they can play. They've got to know after today. You've got to show them. In first for the ball, in first for the ball, and in first for the ball again.
It was an ethos which would change the fortunes of a football club. Not those of one man or a few, but an entire club. They belonged to John Kennedy. They inspired. They carried the word respect. It duly arrived.
When you're behind, you've got to go mad. It's attacking football now. It's attacking football. You take all the risks in the world, except when you get within kicking distance of goal, and then you've got to have a shot for goal. But apart from that, it's attack, attack, attack. Not negative stuff. All the risks you take to make it go right. Handball when you can't do it. When it's impossible, still handball. Onwards towards our goals, though, not backwards.
Yeah, the single most respected person that I have ever had the pleasure to know and to work with. Just a very special man, a highly intelligent guy, very just person, tough as nails, but a man of literature. I mean, I'd be in the front row for his pre-match addresses or meeting addresses because we get a bit of Marx and some of the Bible and a bit of Winston Churchill, all wrapped up with some of Alan Jeans and Norm Smith, and he could do more in an inspirational sense for me as a person than any of the others I met, and there have been some very good ones along the way.
So said David Parkin, a man whose own coaching credentials now stand alongside those of his mentor. He's not alone.
Well, he was the guy that had the greatest influence in my whole career, whether it be playing or coaching. He was such an example setter, I suppose. It was a matter of the gospel according to St Kennedy, and whatever he said, you really took heed.
Such personal legacies extended deep into the mindset of a football club used to beatings. When John Kennedy debuted for Hawthorn in 1950, the club was horrible, a joke, the league's laughingstock. But it didn't take long for this bony ruckman to start infecting those around him. By 1954, he had been club champion 4 times. By 1955, he was captain. By 1957, his beloved Hawks were into the finals for the first time in the club's history. By 1960, he had played 165 games for the club and had replaced the legendary Jack Hale as coach. A new era was about to dawn. Kennedy's Commandos were born, and football was about to change forever.
Daybreak, as the sun came up, we got through the trees and carried the sandbags and came across the river on a rope, you know, and there was a lot of sheer enjoyment in it because the players who weren't on the rope out over the middle of the water, they'd shake the rope and the others would bounce up and down, and there'd be yells of triumph when they'd catapult into the water, and there was no thought of pollution, so everything in the garden was rosy.
Whether it be laps or one of the famous Bulleen camp drills, Kennedy and his men pushed themselves like no others before them. No one dared question him.
John wasn't the sort of person you had a confrontation with. When the boss spoke, most people did it.
If they missed a special session, as Gary Young and John Peck did in 1960, after round 2 was postponed due to inclement weather, Kennedy had his own way of dealing with it. He demanded that duo run 90 laps of Glenferrie, barefoot. And you know what? He did it with them.
Like, he always knew where to find me. If we were running 440s, I was always at the back. If we were doing the old-fashioned circle work, he always looked for me out in the shadows or running around the cricket pitch in the middle, and he never looked for me to be doing too much work. But I think he appreciated the fact that some people enjoyed training more than others, and some people can train easier than others.
It led to the emergence of a great team and mighty club, Hawthorn was suddenly feared. Some thought the methods mad.
I can remember one occasion, John said, I'm a bit concerned about the rooms. He says we got rid of that piano which Simo used to play. The rooms is not as good on training nights. I said, well, I agree. Why don't we get some 16-ounce gloves? Great. He said, great. So I went and bought some 16-ounce gloves. And I'll never forget what happened. He said, well, we'll make it easy. Phil and Stead Hay, 2 brothers, you're first. When I blow the whistle, you fight. When I've done nothing nasty, blow the whistle and we stop. Well, you've never seen 2 brothers absolutely punch the life out of each other. Than those 2, it was just war.
The club's first flag arrived in 1961. 2 others followed under Kennedy's inspirational leadership. Gone were the May blooms. Now outstanding Hawk champions began to emerge. Respect had been sought, it had been gained. Life had changed forever at Glenferrie. By the mid-80s, Victorian football was in a critical condition. South Melbourne had been lost to Sydney, and North Melbourne, despite on-field success, was being mentioned as a merger candidate. The Kangaroos turned to John Kennedy. He hadn't coached for 8 years, but the legend was undiminished. He had turned around Hawthorn's fortunes. He could do the same at Arden Street.
It's more difficult to push people around if they're successful than it is if they're, struggling. So, we're trying to be successful.
The Kangaroos responded. He took them from 11th to 4th in his first season. They stunned Carlton in the elimination final of 1985 with a Kennedy-esque, never-say-die determination.
Number 4, and it's a goal the difference, and North Melbourne coming home like a house on fire.
2 on 1, Cracker rows it beautifully. Any score will put North Melbourne in front, and it's a goal! North!
He would serve as a North Melbourne director once Wayne Schimmelbusch replaced him as coach in 1990. But such was the respect for Kennedy that his knowledge, experience and wisdom were required elsewhere before much longer. In 1993, he was elected to the AFL Commission. He would become its chairman, a sounding board and counsellor to those sailing this ship through turbulent waters. Kennedy's quiet assurance was underpinning the national growth of the Australian Football League. When John Kennedy's son tasted premiership success 4 times with Hawthorn, the mythical qualities of the Kennedy name were somehow further embellished. But one moment in this glorious career will forever underline football's true place in one's life. In 1975, John Kennedy Sr., then coach of Hawthorn, had a captain dying of cancer. Respected without question by friends and foe, Peter Crimmins wanted to play one more game, 1975's grand final. Football and life suddenly merged into one. There was no line separating the two. Kennedy and his match committee were at one of the most profound moments of their lives.
He maintained that he did enough to get in the team in the last match of the year. It's a long story now, but it was a hard time for us all. I sort of thought that he wasn't fit. Well, in fact, I knew he wasn't match fit, but I just had a hunch that his presence on the field might do something for the team. But I didn't have the guts to follow my hunch through because the stakes were, to put it mildly, pretty high. So he didn't play, and we lost.
No written word can translate what Hawthorn's players and its coach were feeling and thinking then. Just like they failed to capture the essence of a man who's had such a profound impact on our cherished game. It's at times like this that it's better to let John Kennedy's words speak for themselves.
If you're feeling tired,
If you're feeling tired, just think of Crimmins. He's home, he's not here. He brought his insides up this morning, he's not here. You weren't at the match committee on Thursday night, as I was, when we had a big argument as to whether he ought to be in or out, and everybody spoke his mind and he finished up out. He's not happy, he wasn't happy about it. Who would be? And even the governor, Sir Henry Winnicky, he has often said, at least do something! Do! Don't think, Mick! Don't hope! Do! At least you can come off and say, I did this! Or I shepherded! Or I played on! At least I did something for the sake of the side. Do! Act! Don't think, act! Eye on the ball! And you must be desperate enough to stick with me and do it. The crowd might laugh, it might go wrong. I'm game enough to tell you to do it. Are you game enough to back me up?